Good morning.
Morning.
Morning. Today is Sunday, February 11, 2024. Yesterday was Losar in Tibetan calendar. As most of you know, we practice in Tibetan Buddhist tradition. So beginning of a new year, which is good, always positive. Opportunity to start anew. This symbol, so Garchen Rinpoche, who's our teacher, asked us when we do this class that we should wear this. This is a symbol of the Drikung Kagyu lineage, Tibetan Buddhism, of which Garchen Rinpoche is, connected to. He's a teacher in that lineage, and he just said it's very positive for those participating in this class to see this, to make that connection with this, which represents the lineage. So that's why we wear this at his request. Let's say, make our aspirations and set our intentions by saying the Four Immeasurables prayer. May all beings have happiness and the causes of happiness. May all beings be free from suffering and the causes of suffering. May all beings not be separated from the happiness that has never known suffering. May they rest in equanimity, free from attachment, anger, and aversion. And regarding aspiration, there's really good teaching on Zoom by Zanzo Khyentse Rinpoche about aspiration. There's two versions of it. One is called Aspiration is King, and it's unedited, which means it's longer because he'll speak and then the translator will speak. I think someone's translating it maybe into Chinese or something. And then there's another version that's just the English version, which is shorter because it's edited. So it's, if you want to just hear the English, that one's just called Aspiration, I think. But that's on YouTube, Zanzo Khyentse Rinpoche, who is one of the teachers that we recommend you investigate and read and watch his videos online. The spelling is on our website, Nick's website, Solidago Productions, which you use to sign up for the class, Solidago Productions. You could see Zanzo Khyentse Rinpoche, some of his books. All of his books are worth reading, and his teachings are wonderful on Zoom. And he goes into detail about the importance of aspiration. We spoke about a little bit about it last time, so I won't go into it now, but I really encourage you to watch that teaching. There may be a few new people here, and just to explain, we started this class because there was a lot of people who followed me on Instagram who asked about meditation. And then we asked our teacher if we should maybe teach meditation, and he said yes. And then a lot of the people in the class early on asked about certain concepts of Buddhism that they were curious about. And then we asked our teacher again, Garchen Rinpoche, should we talk about these things? And he said, talk about, sure, but keep the focus on the mind. Because Buddha is not the name of a man, Buddha is the name of mind. Because Buddhism really is Buddhism is a collection of methods that are used to work with the mind. It's really all that. It's not a theistic religion where we pray to a god or Buddha to come and help us, and it's working with their own mind. In fact, Buddha himself said, you are your own master. Who could be your master if not yourself? Meaning you can only practice by working on your own mind. And when we take refuge, when we become Buddhists, we take refuge in the Buddha and the Dharma and the Sangha, the Buddha, the historical Shakyamuni Buddha. The Buddha can also be referring to our own teacher. The Dharma, the teachings and the Sanghas, the community of Buddhists, we take refuge in that because our own mind is deluded and, obscured from its true nature, and we need to take that refuge until those obscurations are cleared away. But ultimately, it's only us that can do that. No one can work on your mind but you. So, going back to why we started this class, because people were curious about meditation, and many of you came because you were dealing with a lot of anxiety, stress, personal difficulties, and thought that meditation could help. Certainly working on your mind can help with those things, but we always try to remind you that, if Buddhism is what you're interested in, Buddhism really is about seeing the truth, seeing the true nature of our existence, which is completely interconnected and interdependent on everything else and everyone else. And really a lot of it's about dismantling the structure of ego that we've created, which is basically a subjective delusion. I guess all delusions are subjective, but at the same time, if you've come here because of, stress and anxiety and feel that meditation can help, as a component, maybe therapies, is also useful, and exercise and things like that. But we do encourage anyone who is interested in any of these topics that we talk about, specifically Buddhist topics, to find a teacher. Victoria and I are not, we can teach you meditation, simple techniques, right? And we can discuss some Buddhist topics based on our own experiences, but the connection that you make when you become a student of an authentic teacher is a very different experience and commitment. Someone who's dedicated their life, maybe many lifetimes, to mind training and study and meditation. That's essential, really, to make to really tread this path, this path that is Buddhism, these methods. So again, we say this all the time, and I'm going to keep saying it probably for as long as we do this. Can't stress it enough. Find a teacher. If you're interested in this, find a teacher from an authentic lineage and make contact however you can. Nowadays there's teachings online all the time. There's actually, empowerments or certain kind of practices that were never available unless you had to, you were in person. Sometimes even have to travel really far to experience these things, and you can do them online. And as the Buddha himself said, investigate, uh, analyze, really take your time to look at this teacher and see if it makes sense to you, if it connects to you, if you feel inspired by it. Really, do the teachings makes don't just accept them on blind faith. It's very important. Again, there's a list of some teachers on the Solidago Productions website. If you're fortunate enough that one of these teachers is in your city, that's wonderful. But if not, you can decide to, take a trip maybe when this teacher's teaching somewhere where it's accessible for you to go, or you can do it online, or you could start to watch just pre-recorded teachings from, the past online. But to make a connection to this living wisdom tradition that's still here and present in our world is really valuable and really important. And again, I can't stress enough that it's someone who's part of an authentic lineage that's been passed down from Buddha himself to his disciples, to teacher to disciple for, 2,500 years. Okay. So with that, we'll meditate for a little bit. Meditating, watching our mind, watching our thoughts, seeing how our mind works. The first class of this year, I believe, was January 7th. It's on our YouTube channel, Meditation with Michael Imperioli. And this is that is a detailed review of our technique. We don't do that every week because so many of you are here week after week. But if you don't know it, the technique, then I would say after this class, watch it. And in the meantime, in the next few minutes, sit comfortably with your back straight, not rigid, cross-legged. If your hips are raised above your knees, that'll help with a cushion. We breathe through our nose if you can. If not, breathe through your mouth. This tradition that we've a part of, that we meditate with eyes open, angle of the gaze is like similar to the bridge of your nose, and your gaze rests on whatever's in front of you, not intensely focused, not kind of spaced out, cross-eyed, out of focus, just resting lightly. Usually we start by focusing on our breath, actually focusing on the physical aspect of your breath, where it moves in and where it moves out, this space between the upper lip and the nostril. We're using our mind to be aware of what the mind is doing, which sounds a little strange, but that's really what we're doing. So when we're aware that we're thinking, we just notice the fact that we're thinking. Notice the thought, what it is, but don't follow it. Don't let it carry you away into the story of it. Just notice the thought that has arisen, and then back to the breath. Focus your attention again. Space between the upper lip and the nostrils. Focus on that breath, a movement of breath, or the other technique that you all know, who have been here. You visualize that thought as if it's a cloud that has arisen in this limitless, clear, sky-like nature of your mind, and watch it dissolve back into that from where it came, leaving no trace. Settle again into that limitless, calm, placid, sky-like nature of mind, full of potentiality, yet also full of calm and serenity. Mind is looking at mind, and when mind sees a thought has arisen, mind notices it, leaves it where it is, goes back to the breath, watches it dissolve. There's no bad thoughts, wrong thoughts. Just what the mind does. If there's one thing we're sure of, we know the mind thinks. That's what it does and has thoughts. But a thought dissolves and the mind, left in its unaltered state, is clear, calm, stainless, sky-like. Almost imagine a glass. You take a glass and scoop up water from a muddy river, and then you settle it down on a table. And the mud particles, dirt particles, settle to the bottom. And the rest of the water is completely clear. The clarity comes from leaving it alone, right? Letting it remain in its own nature. Back to the breath. If you need to shift your body because there's pain or tension, you can do that. Settle back into that sky-like nature of mind. Trust that it's there. Okay, wonderful. Victoria's going to speak for a few minutes, and then we'll take, if you have any questions, we'll try to answer them. There's a Q&A function in the Zoom toolbar on the bottom of your screen. You can ask questions, and we'll get to in a bit, Victoria.
Nothing earth-shattering or really new today. I just wanted to speak a little bit about first of all, the cause of difficult situations and emotional difficulties that arise. And in Buddhism, we call all of that obstacle, whether it's inner and outer. There's not such a big, huge distinction that's made between the inner and outer. They're actually linked. And all of that, you know, whether we call it obstacles or difficulties or you know, hardships, they arise as karmic events, and there are links between the inner and outer. It's very, very important to understand and to start to shift away from thinking that bad things have causes and antecedents that are out there, quote unquote. In Buddhism, we shift from thinking that there are things out there that we call difficulties and obstacles to understanding that the causes and antecedents are completely in us. Because karma necessarily ripens on us. We create karma. We are the constructors. We are the builders of everything that we experience as out there in our life. The way we experience is based in and on our mind. So understanding this when we're dealing with a difficult situation, remember that we cannot answer anger with anger and not expect it to multiply and get out of control. It's like if you walk into a situation where there's fire, you're not going to put out a fire with more fire. If you're in a situation with a difficult person, and I'm not saying there are not difficult people, that only we are difficult people. No, we can be jointly difficult people. But if we're dealing with a difficult parent, we're dealing with a difficult boss, we're dealing with a difficult partner or child, we cannot put out or have hope of transforming that situation, that if you look at it, you know, a situation of fire, of, you know, situation filled with negativity. We cannot bring our own fire from inside as a reaction and hope to put these blazes out. So moving away from this childish notion, well, he's wrong, he said this, he did this, da. We can have all of these things, you know, in our kindergarten mind. But if we want to shift to real awareness, we begin to think, yes, here's this difficult situation, but what does it take to bring that temperature down? What does it take? What can transform the situation? And there's only one plausible answer, and that is if I come into the situation with different ingredients, where I'm no longer stuck on this, I am right and he is wrong and she is bad and I am aware and they're not aware. All this has to be discarded because this is all just mental junk. This is just a way of very ordinary ego mind that, you know, can never really bring about any major change or resolution. What it takes is awareness. If we walk into a situation and look at this situation and remember that it is, you know, a bubble in time, that it is interdependence, it is impermanence, and in its true nature, there is a basis of emptiness inside it, you know. So when we come in with our wisdom mind into a difficult situation, which means already that they're not hooking us, we are not functioning on that he's wrong, I'm right level, you know. When we bring just clarity into a situation, we're dealing with a difficulty, we're dealing with a difficult person. We already know that we're a part of that ingredient that creates that difficulty on the outside. It is our karma ripening on us. And second, we're thinking, what can we do to change and transform the situation? Because if we're walking into the situation with knowing I want to transform the situation rather than I want to be right, it's the only hope that any change can possibly happen. If we stick to this, I'm right, he's wrong thing, there's just zero hope, you know. We have to bring water to the fire. We have to bring wisdom to ignorance. And that goes for situations when we call them extrinsic situations with others, and the same intrinsic situations when we're dealing with difficulties ourselves, when we're dealing with addiction, we're dealing with, you know, addiction to anger, we're dealing addiction to jealousy, we're dealing with addiction to you know, all kinds of difficult emotional states of mind, hatred torn to oneself, where it starts to kind of like gnaw on us, you know, where we feel, you know, we create a picture of the world as this hostile, difficult place, and our bodies always responding with anxiety and you know, bordering on, you know, suicidal kinds of things. When we want to dissolve those kinds of things, we have to bring kindness, whether it's extrinsic, dealing with a difficult other, or dealing with a difficult self. It is not differentiated, because the difficult is a way that we perceive the world by looking at it in a certain kind of way. So we're trying to break down this, why do we see it as this you know, unsurmountable, difficult thing, and we see it that way? It's because our mind is perceiving that way. As for a person who feels abandoned by the world, feels that everyone's against them, feels, you know, there's no purpose for them any longer of being here. In other words, it's a way of projecting oneself as rejected by others. And but of course, you know, in that rejected by others, there's also never kind of a thing, well, what can I do for them? You know, bringing ourselves back to this awareness of light and compassion, because wisdom is light and compassion. Wisdom, and that's kind of a really good gauge to know if we are on the side of awareness or ego ignorance, because awareness is never judgmental. Awareness is always super kind. Awareness is something that sees how things are and doesn't really bring fire into the situation, but always brings water and light into the situation. If we're experiencing a difficult person, right away we know if we're on the side of awareness or ignorance, is that we bring into that situation compassion. We feel, you know, not sorry, but we feel compassion for that person who's kind of set on fire, who is, you know, ignited by their perception of the situation and themselves and the world as this difficult, horrendous situation where they have to fight and scream and battle and do all this kinds of stuff, you know, like a caged animal syndrome. You know, we bring awareness is always a presence of the mind, an intrinsic situation where we feel, what can I do for you to lower down the temperature? What can I do for you to extinguish this fire? What can I do for you to, for you not to perceive me like an enemy? What can I do for you to have trust in me and let me be a part of you and this whole situation, the dance, the karmic dance where you and I are standing together and this situation arises, to change the situation from ugly to beautiful. That's awareness. You know, answering with the, you're this, you're that, you know, I'm right, I you know, I want to like pound you, blah blah blah, you know, that is the mind of ignorance. That is always an unmistakable mind of ordinary ego grasping mind with its 5 afflictive emotions. So that is always the temperature sensor. We know if we're with awareness, we have kindness, or we are in this ignorant self-grasping mode and we go on the defensive or offensive or whatever the hell that we call it. But we're just creating more karma. Just remember, there is nothing that's happening out of a situation where we're screaming, battling, and doing all that stuff. That doesn't mean that we're not active. It doesn't mean that we're passive and we just kind of take the beating. No, awareness is the super active a way of being in the world that brings a lot into any given situation. It doesn't just stand by and watch bad things happen, nothing of that nature. But in order to have awareness, we must become aware and accepting of our own defects. We have to know what our faults are. And when we become aware of a fault, let's say we're dealing with addiction, physical addiction to substances or addiction to anger. We wake up with anger every day. We go to bed with anger every day. We know we're addicted to certain kind of behaviors. Physical addiction is based on desire. This way of moving through the world of always being angry and feeling that, there's only hostility and negativity is an addiction to anger, and we have to know these things in order to dissolve them. Because only by really bringing the clarity into knowing the negativity, by owning it, by saying, okay, this is who I am, this is where I am, but I'm going to work on dropping you and leaving you and me moving away from you and you not always encapsulating me and setting me on fire. Because remember, like in addiction, every time we go for, we're eating without mind, we're drinking without mind, and that being without mind behavior is the thing that's killing us. We need to bring the mind in. We need to know that when we're drinking and eating and consuming substances or, exploding without mind, it's killing us, We're not harming anyone else out there. We're harming ourselves. Of course, we're also harming others when we're harming ourselves because of interdependence. We are never disconnected. Whatever we do affects actually the whole universe, but we experience the biggest blowback in our immediate circle because what we do always affects others. So knowing this, we bring our wisdom mind. We also, when it's in terms of ourselves, we're dealing with intrinsic difficulty. We take that fear, we take that anxiety, we take that anger, and we don't cuddle it, but at the same time we're not beating it and multiplying its negativity, its sheer volume, by bringing more negativity. We're not pounding down on our anger, we're not pounding on our addiction. What we want to do is we want to acknowledge it. We want to become super sharp, clear with it. And every time that it's triggered up, we're not doing it without mind, but it is the mind that's ultimately going to bring down the temperature and the hold, that thing that binds us. When we become kind to ourselves in terms of, knowing and acknowledging that we have these defects, we have these faults, we're dealing with them, rather than like saying, oh, I hate this thing that I have inside myself, and intensifying and multiplying that negativity. We cannot abandon a negativity by making it bigger. It's just like we cannot stop a fire by bringing fuel to it or more fire. We have to do it in the opposite way. And so when we acknowledge our negativity, we acknowledge our fault, and we can have a real, you're here and I know you're here. You're a part of me, but I am going to start leaving you behind, because if we don't part with our negativity, with our fault, with our disease in a good way, we can never eradicate it fully. It'll always come back. If we just suppress it by force and bury it and try to kind of just bury it deep inside ourselves, it's never gonna leave us. To leave a fault, it's like the darkness has to be replaced by light. I mean, we can't just have this dark and this dark fighting intrinsically together and have any hope that we can abandon it. So, with courage and with wisdom, saying, yes, I have this anxiety. We look for its causes. We look for how to soften the antecedent, how to soften the root, how to put the water on the fire. If it's anger that arises in, uh, that is hidden somewhere from fears, I'm going to be poor, or I'm going to be not this, I'm not going to be loved, saying, okay, I have this, but I'm going to stay with this, I'm going to live with it. And the more we stay with it, the softer it becomes, and the less harsh and difficult and choking it becomes. And little by little, when we can live with the difficulty, when we can acknowledge that I can stay with you, I can live with you, it no longer torments us, and ultimately it becomes not a difficulty any longer. And that's how we deal with things, by not suppressing them, by not pounding on them, by not creating another version of a difficulty, but by being kind. We can transfer that kindness when we now deal with difficult others, when we can bring the kindness in dealing with difficulties with ourselves. We can bring that to others, because we kind of then know, well, I can be so difficult, I have all these flaws, so why am I saying that you're so flawed, you're so bad? We're in the same boat. We are travelers in a very similar terrain. So, we're both trying to overcome mental disease. Why am I calling you bad and kind of like pretending that I am flawless and I have none of these flaws? Bring kindness to yourself and bring kindness to others, and then you're actually dealing with the situation. Now, when I say bring kindness, I don't mean cuddle and let all these kinds of fires burn inside and think it's okay that I'm angry, it's okay. Absolutely not. What I'm saying bring kindness is, I'm saying bring wisdom, shed light, be okay that right now you are here, because the more wisdom and light into every moment by moment by moment you bring in, the less darkness there will remain. And that's the only way we can part with our faults and delusions, is by bringing moment by moment by moment the light of wisdom mind, because our ultimate nature is our basic goodness. It's on an analogy like this: we can only smoke, inhale horrible things and things like that on the breath that sustains our life, on the breath that keeps us alive. That poison cannot just come in all by itself. We already need to have pathways that are good, that are pure. And that's why the wisdom mind is always the basis of all these other negativities. So it's about finding the wisdom mind in the sea of negativity. And also keeping in mind the perspective, all these things that are happening to us right now, to a Buddha and to our own Buddha mind, are like little bubbles, on the surface of an ocean of existence. They will pop and they will be reabsorbed again into the ocean of existence. So have courage, have wisdom, have patience, have diligence, use all these 6 parameters, but by always bringing the view. And the view is, our nature is luminosity and compassion. Don't ever forget, whenever you're dealing with all these storms, intrinsic and extrinsic, your Buddha nature is not a corruptible thing, because it's reality. In reality, all these little things that arise and fall, they can only happen on the basis of this reality. And also remember, a relative truth. That's the ultimate truth, is our Buddha nature. And the relative truth, always remember the relative truth. Karma always ripens on us. It comes from us and it ripens on us. It is like gravity. Karma is like throwing something up. It will land on us always again, because karma is ours. We produce it and it ripens on us. whenever we want to like hurt someone else and do all this thing, maybe, and you know, we can have like a momentary experience that we did hurt them, we did say those malicious things, but absolutely be certain that all that maliciousness and that negativity will ripen on us. It'll come back in a millionfold bigger version because of all the disease that we put out there through our negative body, speech, and mind. Every time we get angry and we scream and we do these kinds of things, all that will ripen on us. That is how we meet the bad boss, a bad, difficult partner, a difficult child. It's our karma ripening on us. So, you know, without delay, let's not create more negativity that will always ripen on us. It must ripen on us. You know, let's bring our wisdom mind into all these kinds of situations and start to dissolve karma, dissolve negativity, dissolve the hold of ignorance on our mind. Because remember, you know, the ego grasping mind is still happening on the basis of our wisdom Buddha mind. And, you know, always connect to your wisdom Buddha mind. Breathe in, think of your central channel. Just remember, you know, this storm that's here right now, it's your karma ripening on oneself. It'll pass, you know, but it can pass in luminosity with wisdom mind, or, you know, it can pass while we're creating a bigger version of the same storm, and we will experience that storm in the near future, or like in a little bit more removed future, or in the next lifetime. But remember the two truths, you know, the Buddha nature and karma, and, you know, act with body, speech, and mind with the three gates, always in the right way.
Thank you.
To deal with difficulties, and also good situations too. You know, don't get intoxicated because a good thing has happened and you have good karma that's ripened on you. If you have good things, share them with others, you know, bring them to others. Don't get intoxicated and stuck, because it'll ultimately also become a negativity. So,
Thank you very much. If there's no soul for Buddhists, what is it of me that gets reincarnated? You know, reincarnation is a tricky word, right? And a lot of these words that are, you know, these concepts that come from, you know, India and other parts of Asia, you know, they're translated into English, and sometimes they don't encompass the whole concept, right? We talk about mind in this class all the time, right? When I said Buddha's not the name of man, Buddha's name of mind. What is mind? Mind is consciousness, right? So the fact that we have mind, we're conscious, our consciousness is what our mind is. Now, you can see kind of an analogy to the soul, concept of soul, but usually the soul has this inherent existence or an inherent concept of the self connected to it. So like the analogy that's really great that I always like is if you have a candle, right, that's lit with a flame, and then you have another candle that's not lit, and the unlit candle you light from the flame of the other candle. Now you have two flames, and then the first flame goes out. Now, is that other flame the same as the first, or is it different? There's certainly a continuity between the flames. That's kind of one way to look at it. So if the self, right, in Buddhist concepts is this very subjective accumulation of conceptual labels and thinking that we've put together in this lifetime, those concepts don't really continue. Those concepts are not essential to anything. But the consciousness, the mind, whatever that luminous sky-like and nature is. And again, we have to look, if we're dealing with Buddhist concepts, we have to talk about Shunyata, things that the ultimate nature of truth is that it's empty of inherent existence, right? Interdependence and impermanence and those things. What is it that's getting reincarnated? What is that essential nature? It's not Michaelness, it's much more connected to this complete interdependence of existence, empty of inherent existence, but interdependent existence. It's very complicated, and I'm not very articulate or eloquent in describing it, which is one reason we talk about connecting to teachers who can really shed a lot more light on this concept. But the continuity is what's important. The continuity, which some people talk about, that the soul lives on after you're dead, right? But this continuity is, I guess there's an analogy to it, but it's without this inherent flavor of the person of this lifetime. So it's more about what is continuing, Can you shed more light on that? It's a tricky concept to talk about, but
It's a difficult topic to talk about.
Well, I forgot to add this. One other thing I want to add is even the physicists and science, quantum physics, Einstein, and people like that, have always said that time is an illusion, right? Time is an abstract kind of thing. So again, when we're talking about mind continuing and reincarnation, we also have to go beyond this kind of linear, chronological, historical like procession of time when we're dealing with reincarnation. That's where it also gets tricky. A lot of this view of Buddhism, this whole thing about ultimate truth and emptiness, shunyata, dependent arising, empty of inherent existence, we have to go beyond our logical conceptual mind to really kind of even approach it. If we're stuck in this very, limited kind of story from when we were born to when we die, and completely in this physical world, thinking of ourselves as complete and whole, and it's going to be tough, to go beyond. Even just the nature of us as a person, right? We feel solid, but a scientist who looks at us through some kind of electron microscope can see that we're made up of particles, which are actually waves, and they don't even know what the essential nature of those waves are. We're energy or what we are. We see it as, I'm a person, but you know what I mean? And when we talk about Buddhism, we're talking about really approaching truth,
Reality.
Go ahead.
I mean, I don't have anything super, interesting to say about this either, because, we need masters and teachers to explain things like that to us. Certain things are not conceptually driven things as well. They are experiential things of, levels of awareness where our masters have and we don't. But let's take an analogy of, reality, the ultimate and the relative. So we, Mind is not born, doesn't die, is not partial. Another word for mind in Buddhist context is reality. It's the basis. It's the ultimate. Buddhists do not accept a materialistic universe. For materialistic universe to exist, it is still necessary to say there is an I and there is another. There is this consciousness, it's observing subject, observing object. But Buddhists collapse it all into mind because, again, that structure of subject object is just a construct. It's a conceptual construct, and you need awareness to actually even understand that, or you need awareness to hold that construct. Like you need breath to hold smoking, you need the ocean to hold the waves, you need the sky to hold the clouds, etc. But always the mind can dwell in its ultimate nature, always does dwell in its ultimate nature, and yet, there is always manifestation arising, like the ocean and the waves. Are the waves separate from the ocean? While in a delusional state, the waves think that they are separate. That's what ignorance is, right? It's like, oh, I am this wave. I am so great. I am better than that other person. This is a little wave or a bubble, just a little bubble thinking that to oneself. That's delusion. Now, awareness is knowing I am the ocean and I am the bubble, so encompassing both. But here's the thing. So the bubble is the karmic energy, right? The ultimate energy, reality. And think of it very scientifically. When things arise, these molecules or particles arise as Michael right now, but they're already breaking down and wanting to be other things. They're already on the way of transforming and becoming other things. Also, we're shedding these, particles. They're already becoming other things. In fact, we are only alive because of a process of transformation. We need air, we need to exhale the other things, we need to eat caviar, it comes out of the other end as something else. That process is continuously going on. But anyway, so going back to, ultimate reality, just the nature of the nature of all things, and reality. And then the little bubble arising. And the bubble is, think of it as karmic energy. As long, karmic energy will continue to arise and be a part of us until it's done. There won't be Buddhahood until karmic energy will arise. It's the karmic energy is what propels us to take shape and form in the 6 classes of beings. Think of it like this. Fire could be extinguished, but the embers are still on the ground. And those embers can become another fire. And that's like, think of it as another life. Until we put out the fire ultimately and completely and get absorbed into reality, our Buddha nature, simply and purely our Buddha nature. Well, there's no other being, becoming enlightened. And remember, all Buddhism is a path with a very clear destination. All the means and methods are to bring you to full enlightenment, Buddhahood. When we can exist as Buddhas or as sentient beings. Of course, Buddhahood encompasses our, temporary becomings, like the embers starting another fire. Then again, it goes out, but embers are still there. We have to come back to always put out our fire. And that's what this reincarnation is like. The ember lays dormant and then will become again a fire. So we're forced to come back and be firemen and mop up our mess. That's what karma is. As long as there's karma, we will be propelled and forced by karmic energy to return. It's not what Michael said. It's not like a Victoria comes back or a Michael comes back. Awareness comes back based on its previous causes and, and now conditions, and takes birth. That's why they say that based on the afflictive emotions, we come back as 6 different kinds of beings. If we're very dominated by ignorance that turns away from others, we come back as animals. You know, we're very dominated by anger, hatred. You know, we come back into this realm of suffering, that's endless suffering of, you know, hell beings. And again, those descriptions, you can really think of them in mental terms, psychological terms. You know, people who experience suffering all the time without stop, that's a hell being. People who experience thirst and appetite all the time, that's what we call the hungry ghosts. You know, desire realm, humans, etc. You know, and so those are the embers that force us to come back to mop up our fire. We will always come back as long as we leave fire behind. As long as there are embers, we will be forced by karmic energy to come back. Until that karmic energy, it's like a storm on top of the ocean. Until the storm is done, these things will, you know, pop up on the surface of the ocean. You know, there will be the hurricane things and the big waves and the tsunamis, depending on the strength of our emotion and karmic energy. The bigger the karmic energy, the greater the event on top of the surface of the ocean. And until karma becomes just the surface of the ocean, until everything is resolved, and there is no more karmic movement. Buddhas have no karmic movement. They don't have to deal with embers and fires. Buddhas are only here to love and to see. It's wisdom and compassion. It's a way of being that is, you know, we can only talk about it in a provisional way. And please, you know, just, I want to make it very clear. These are just provisional ways of being able to speak about something that is really unspeakable. It's what in many cultures people refer to, you know, as this ultimate, you know, way of being, God or something like that, you know. But, you know, any term is too short, because terms remain a relative truth. And we can't really, you know, it's like ants. You know, does an ant know what happens in a skyscraper on the 100th floor during lunch, you know, in the executive office? I doubt it. You know, an ant is only aware of its little pile and its little microcosm. So just to be sure that when we use conceptual terminology, we're in this ant environment, you know, looking at, you know, the skyscraper. Still, you know, we have our Buddha nature, and you know, we have beings who have become Buddhas, and therefore Buddha has left us a map, and he gave us a map on how to get to that destination of enlightenment, you know. And so, but, you know, Garchen Rinpoche always says, you know, the teacher gives you the map, but you're the one who has to take the map and through your practice get to that destination using your beautiful vehicle, this car of body, speech, and mind, of the supreme birth, human birth, you know, of fortune and leisure. We have just enough time and the ability to ponder to get to that destination of enlightenment. Beings in other realms do not. So also remember, you know, the fortunate human birth.
I watch my breath too tightly and constantly. Becomes nervous and I can't relax it. I don't know how to adjust it. Maybe you need to focus more on that visualization that we talk about with the cloud that's arising in the sky and dissolving into the sky. Maybe that's, you know, a little more spacious. You say you watch too tightly. Maybe that gives you the opportunity to kind of like experience a bit more openness rather than just this watch my breath, what, you know. And also you know, I'm not sure if you're just starting, if you've been meditating for a long time, you know, if you're just starting, you know, it's a challenge just to do this. It's a very, even though it's the mind that we've always had and our thought process that's happened our whole lives, when we start to see it, it's a very new way of focusing our attention. So be patient as well if you're just beginning, but at the same time, try that um, visualization rather than just focusing on the breath. That might be a little bit easier for you.
And if I may just add, mix breath with the mind, make mind sky-like, and use this visualization. Inhaling all the purity from the outside, mix that purity on the inside, and then think of the purity again as you exhale. Connect to the openness of the mind. And again, make the mind not just this mechanical observer of what's happening in the body and like this little, watchman for just this little tiny little space. The mind is not just that. That's one of the little bubble arisings of the mind, but the mind is this cognitive openness. So use a visualization of mixing the mind with the sky. And also remember, when you're inhaling, that which sustains and nurtures and keeps you, it's all, it is undefinable all. You're connecting to all things. So keeping the mind spacious.
What place does curiosity have in the wise mind? I mean, curiosity is very good. I mean, curiosity is something that might lead you to discover the concept of meditation, or the inspiration to meditate, or the inspiration to study Dharma, Buddhism, become a Buddhist, things like that. And again, I mentioned this before, and I've mentioned it in other classes. Buddha himself said, "Do not take my teachings just on face value. Examine, really analyze, really look at these teachings with a critical mind and say, does it make sense to me? Does it sound authentic? Does it sound, and especially when you're starting to look for a teacher, do not take it at face value because I recommended, or Victoria or someone else recommended, or you saw the book in the store or whatever. Really use your own critical mind and critical thinking, and to analyze and really listen and really see if it makes sense and right, and is right for you. I think curiosity is, you can look at curiosity as the wisdom mind bubbling up, the wisdom mind being open and looking out and, being inspired, or things that inspire you grabbing your attention. I'm working on improving the anger response in my relationship. Suggestions on Buddhist perspective on catching oneself in the moment. Everyone has different triggers. Is there a universal solution? I mean, there's something we've, Victoria's been talking about this week after week after week, and spent a lot of time even talking about it this morning. So there's not a pill we can give you, but, this practice that she's been talking about takes commitment. It's not like, I'm going to give you a little, nugget from a fortune cookie that you can, tomorrow is going to solve your anger problems. It's going to take patience and practice, uh, meditating, on a regular basis, pondering these teachings, hearing these teachings, applying them, trial and error. You know what I mean? It's, and the teachings in the things Victoria were describing about, and the practice of meditation, these go together. I mean, they're not isolated. So I can't really, I don't want to just answer this without knowing your practice, your how what kind of time and effort you're putting into these practices, and there's not just a little pithy nugget that just says try this, but if you're committing to spending time with your mind and seeing how your mind works and watching it, watching the thoughts come in, watching them settle, you can start and you can start to apply that to these situations. I mean, that's really as a small metaphor why we practice with eyes open, because most of these situations, in your relationships, you're with your eyes open. You're not just kind of spaced out into your own head. You're dealing with stuff that's in front of you. It's really about making a commitment to being, kind of waking up and being aware in these situations. The fact that you're asking this question is really good.
Yes.
Really, really, really good. Whether this is your first class or you never meditated or you've been meditating for a couple of years, the fact that you're asking this question is really, really, really important.
Yes. It's really, really important. It means you've become aware. And obviously, when we become aware, we then know we do not want to live with anger for ourselves. We don't want to be triggered and bring the anger out and light up the world, from that intrinsic experience. And this is what I want to say. And that's a very, very important part, because most of the time we dwell in ignorance. We just say, he made me be angry. She made me be angry. It's an incredible step already in the right direction to say, I don't want to be angry. It's my anger. I don't want to be angry. I don't want to have it here. I don't want to have it, out there, coming out of my 3 doors, out of my body, speech, and mind. When we sit down to our Buddhist practice, our second bodhicitta commitment is we say, I will use my body, speech, and mind for virtue until enlightenment. That's many lifetimes, right? Second, we say, I will use my body, speech, and mind for virtue until death. That's this lifetime. And then the third, we say, I will use my body, speech, and mind for virtue from now until this time tomorrow. Make a commitment for 24 hours. And this is for all of us. And this is regarding any negativity and any kind of I want to be aware. I don't want to be angry. I don't want to be jealous. I don't want to be addicted. Whatever. Make a commitment for 24 hours and make a real aspiration and say, today, I will not be flamed up. I will not be hooked. I will stay aware. And if I falter, I'll get up and I will resume. Okay? As opposed to like beat down on myself, and create and compound the anger. Make a commitment for 24 hours. Do your morning meditation. Make a strong aspiration. Today, I will stay with this vow for 24 hours. And stay really strong. Try for 24 hours, or minus the sleep, not to get triggered, not to be habitually respond in a habitual manner, not to be the habitual ordinary self-grasping self, not to have the ego at the center of this that responds in the world with anger and this, or whatever addiction. 24 hours, just 24 hours. And then tomorrow you can take that vow again. And that's the core of practice. Every day, taking a 24-hour commitment to be, you say, I don't want to be this, I want to be this. I don't want to be black. I don't want to have this darkness. I want to have this light. There was a story of a master when he sat down to meditate, he had black and white pebbles, right? And for every negative thought, he would put a black pebble on a pile. And for every pure thought or virtuous thought, he would put a white, pebble in a pile. And in the beginning, all he had were black piles. And then little by little, like little white piles would start to appear, because he would bring his awareness Become very aware intrinsically, not out there, but intrinsically. Am I thinking in a virtuous way? You're not going, oh, I'm going to meet this difficult person. I'm going to give them a chance to be good again. No, you're doing an intrinsic cleaning of the house. You're going, am I bringing my virtuous self into this difficult situation? Am I being patient with this difficult person? Am I doing everything I can to dissolve this difficult situation on my side? And so little by little, the black piles got replaced with the white piles. And because when you bring your awareness moment to moment, awareness is not like once a day. Awareness is moment by moment. And from that kind of awareness, everything can become meaningful. When you sit to eat, be aware before you gobble it all up for yourself. Say, may I eat for all the beings, and may I dedicate this food to the Buddhists, to the teachers, and all those who don't have it right now. Eat mindfully. When you drink mindfully. Think of all the others who are thirsty now, who are dying, who are in difficult situations. Bring mindfulness, bring the world, feel others, things like that. Make a vow for 24 hours and then bring awareness moment by moment. Even when you go to poop, you go to the bathroom or you're peeing, think, I am pooping out negativity, mine and all other beings. I am pooping out all their afflictions. I am peeing out all the kind of disgusting, dirty, afflictive states of mind and emotion. With bring it everywhere, all the time. That's what it means to practice. We sit down so that we can know how to cultivate these mechanisms, how to bring awareness with us when we get up. We're only sitting down to bring our awareness into life. We're not sitting down to space out and feel good for the 5 minutes and then say to our friends, oh, I'm meditating, I'm special. No, we're sitting down so we can bring it to the, when we shop, when we work, when we do everything, when we communicate with others, we meditate to bring that awareness into everything. And so vow for 24 hours, make sure your awareness is your constant companion. Bring the light to everything.
And to continue on that, but also address a couple of other questions. People always ask, how long, when should I meditate? It helps to make it a regular practice every day or almost every day. It helps to do it, if you make it part of your morning routine. It helps to have a dedicated place if you have it, even if it's a tiny little corner. The regularity and the consistency is more important than how long you meditate for.
Yeah, sorry.
No, we're gonna wrap it up.
Just wanted to say,
things.
awareness is like sobriety. It takes it moment by moment being there, and that's what's important.
And someone is talking about a friend who's facing death at the moment. I would immediately get the book Living is Dying by Zanzer Khyentse Rinpoche. There's also an audio book. Get it immediately, read it immediately, and you'll have lots and lots and lots of, in that book, ways to help your friend right now in this moment. Rather than us describe it, get that book. It's really wonderful, and it'll really give you very effective, clear things to do at the moment. And lastly, someone's bringing up karma. We have to close. That's a gigantic subject to talk about. But from your question, you mentioned punishment reward. Karma is not a punishment reward cosmic system. Think of karma as cause and effect. Cause and effect, like
Gravity.
Science. Yeah. Every action has a reaction. It is not a reward and punishment system. There's no cosmic judge. There's no Buddha who's going to punish you for doing this. Look at it as cause and effect. Get that. If you approach it that way, it's a lot closer. The book is called Living is Dying by Zanzer Khyentse Rinpoche. I really encourage you to get it right away if you have someone in your life that's dealing with that. It'll really, 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 really be helpful. It's a wonderful book. Let's dedicate the merit from today's class for the benefit of all beings by saying our dedication prayer. By this merit may all
all
beings
beings
attain the
attain the
state
state
of
of
enlightenment
omniscience,
and conquer the enemies of
enemies
faults
faults
and
and
delusions.
delusions,
May they be
be
liberated
liberated
from
from
this
this
ocean
ocean
of
of
samsara
samsara
and
and
its
its
pounding
pounding
waves
waves
of
of
birth,
birth,
old
old age,
age, sickness,
sickness,
and
and
death.
death.
Thank you, Nick Solidio, our producer. See you.